I never imagined that cleaning up after someone else's success would lead to witnessing my own daughter's triumph. My name is Maria Santos, and for 15 years, I've been invisible in the gleaming towers of corporate America. My hands calloused from scrubbing floors, my dreams deferred but never abandoned. The evening air in downtown Chicago carried the familiar scent of rain and ambition as I pushed my cleaning cart through the marble lobby of the prestigious Millennium Tower. The building housed some of the city's most influential businesses, and tonight, the 42nd floor was hosting the annual Tech Innovation Awards ceremony. I had been specifically requested to work this event, not because of any particular skill, but because I was reliable, quiet, and most importantly, invisible. My daughter Rebecca had insisted on coming with me tonight. At 28, she rarely had time to visit, always buried in work, always pushing herself towards some goal she never quite explained in detail. She said she wanted to spend time with me, to help with the cleaning afterward, but I suspected she was between apartments again, a common occurrence for young professionals in this expensive city. As we rode the elevator up to the 42nd floor, I watched Rebecca's reflection in the polished steel doors. She wore a simple black dress that I recognized from my own closet, paired with a small purse she had borrowed from me earlier that day. Her hair was pulled back in a neat chignon, and she carried herself with a confidence I had always admired but never fully understood. Where had she learned to stand so tall, to speak so clearly, to command attention without demanding it? The elevator dinged softly as we reached our destination. The doors opened to reveal a world of crystal chandeliers, flowing champagne, and the low hum of important conversations. Men in perfectly tailored suits discussed merger deals, while women in designer gowns laughed at jokes that weren't particularly funny. This was the world I cleaned but never inhabited. The world where decisions were made that affected thousands of lives, including my own. I began my work methodically, as I always did. Empty the trash bins, wipe down surfaces, ensure the restrooms were spotless. Rebecca stayed close, occasionally helping but mostly observing. She had always been a watcher, even as a child, taking in details that others missed, processing information with an intensity that sometimes worried me. The crowd tonight was particularly affluent, even by this building's standards. I recognized several faces from the business magazines left behind in offices, CEOs and investors whose names appeared regularly in the financial news. They spoke in coded language about disruption and innovation, about changing the world through technology, about creating the future. As I worked, I couldn't help but think about my own future, or lack thereof. At 52, I had long ago accepted that my dreams of returning to school, of perhaps becoming a teacher as I had once hoped, were unrealistic fantasies. The bills needed paying. Rebecca's education had required sacrifices, and there was no time for indulgent dreams about what might have been. But Rebecca had always been different. Even as a child, she had shown an unusual aptitude for mathematics and science, solving problems that stumped her teachers, asking questions that revealed a mind working on multiple levels simultaneously. I had worked extra shifts, taken on additional cleaning contracts, sold everything of value I owned to ensure she could attend the best schools, pursue the best opportunities. The sacrifice had been worth it. She had earned her bachelor's degree in computer science, then her master's in business administration, all while working part-time jobs to help cover expenses. She had never complained, never asked for more than I could give, never made me feel inadequate for being unable to provide the kind of life other parents offered their children. As the evening progressed, I found myself cleaning near the main reception area where the most important guests congregated. The conversations were animated, deals were being struck, connections were being made. I moved through the crowd like a ghost, collecting empty glasses and discarded napkins, my presence acknowledged only when someone needed to move around my cart. Rebecca had wandered toward the silent auction area, examining the items on display with the same intensity she brought to everything else. Luxury vacations, expensive artwork, exclusive dining experiences, all donated by companies hoping to curry favor with the influential attendees. She studied each item carefully, occasionally making notes in a small leather journal she always carried. It was then that I encountered him. Richard Blackwood, senior partner at Blackwood & Associates, one of the city's most prestigious investment firms. I had cleaned his office on numerous occasions, always careful to work around his schedule to remain invisible while ensuring his workspace met his exacting standards. He was holding court near the bar, regaling a small group with stories of his latest acquisition, his voice carrying the kind of authority that comes from never having been truly challenged. His laugh was loud and self-satisfied, the kind of laugh that fills a room and demands attention. I was emptying a nearby trash bin when I heard him notice Rebecca. She was standing alone, examining a piece of modern art that had been donated to the auction, her expression thoughtful and analytical. "Interesting choice," he said, approaching her with the confidence of a man accustomed to being welcomed everywhere. "Most people don't appreciate abstract expressionism." Rebecca turned to face him, her smile polite but reserved. "I find it fascinating how the artist uses negative space to create tension," she replied. "The absence of form becomes as important as the form itself." Blackwood's eyebrows rose slightly, apparently impressed despite himself. "You have an educated eye? Are you in the art world?" "No," Rebecca said simply. "I work in technology." They continued their conversation for several minutes, discussing art, business, and the evening's presentations. I continued my work, staying close enough to hear but far enough to remain unnoticed. Rebecca held her own in the conversation, demonstrating knowledge and insights that clearly surprised Blackwood. Eventually, their conversation was interrupted by another guest who needed Blackwood's attention. As he turned to leave, his eyes fell on me for the first time that evening. I was bent over my cart, organizing cleaning supplies, my uniform marking me as clearly as any badge. His expression changed immediately. The interest and respect he had shown Rebecca vanished, replaced by a look of mild disdain. He glanced back at Rebecca, then at me, and I saw the moment of recognition dawn on his face. "Ah," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the nearby conversations. "I see where you learned your appreciation for the finer things." Rebecca's smile faded slightly, but she maintained her composure. "I'm sorry?" Blackwood's laugh was sharp and cutting. "The help these days is quite ambitious, isn't it? I suppose it's natural to absorb something from proximity to success." He gestured toward me dismissively, "though I've always believed that certain aspirations are better left to those born to them." The conversations around us began to quiet as people sensed the tension. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger, but I kept my eyes down, continuing to work. This was not the first time I had encountered this kind of dismissal, and it would not be the last. Rebecca stepped closer to Blackwood, her voice calm but firm. "I'm not sure I understand what you're implying." "Oh, come now," Blackwood said, warming to his theme. "We all know our place in the world. Some of us are meant to build empires, others to clean up after us. There's no shame in honest work, of course, but let's not pretend that ambition can overcome breeding." He turned to address the growing crowd, his voice rising with theatrical flair. "I've seen it countless times. The children of service workers, convinced they can rise above their station through education and hard work. Admirable, certainly, but ultimately futile." The room had grown quiet now, all attention focused on Blackwood's impromptu speech. I wanted to disappear, to wheel my cart away and finish my work in peace, but I found myself frozen in place. "Take this young woman's mother, for instance," Blackwood continued, gesturing toward me. 15 years she's been cleaning offices in this building. Reliable, certainly, but hardly the breeding ground for greatness. And yet I'm sure she's filled her daughter's head with impossible dreams. He paused for effect, enjoying the attention of his audience. The truth is, maids don't raise winners. They raise more maids. It's simply the natural order of things. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because they were unexpected, but because they were delivered with such casual cruelty, such absolute certainty. I had spent my entire adult life trying to shield Rebecca from exactly this kind of prejudice, working tirelessly to ensure she never felt limited by my circumstances. I looked at Rebecca, standing beside me in the dress she had borrowed from my closet, holding the purse I had saved for months to buy. Her face was calm, almost serene, but I could see the fire burning behind her eyes. "That's an interesting perspective," she said quietly, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "I suppose we all have our theories about success and failure, about who deserves what and why." Blackwood smiled, pleased with what he perceived as acquiescence. "Precisely. It's refreshing to meet someone who understands these realities." Rebecca nodded thoughtfully, then excused herself, moving toward the restroom. I continued my work, my hand shaking slightly as I wiped down surfaces and collected glasses. The conversation around us gradually resumed, but I could feel the weight of stares, the whispered comments, the mixture of pity and embarrassment that followed public humiliation. 20 minutes later, the evening's formal program began. The master of ceremonies, a well-known local television personality, took the podium to introduce the evening's keynote speaker. I had worked my way to the back of the room, hoping to finish my tasks and leave as quickly as possible. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, "tonight we have the extraordinary privilege of hearing from the founder and CEO of Quantum Solutions, the fastest-growing technology firm in the state." I half listened as he recited the company's impressive statistics. Founded just 3 years ago, Quantum Solutions had already secured major contracts with several Fortune 500 companies, developed groundbreaking software that revolutionized data analysis, and attracted over $50 million in venture capital funding. This young entrepreneur has been featured on the cover of Forbes magazine, named to the prestigious 30 Under 30 list, and recently announced a partnership with Microsoft that will bring their innovative technology to markets worldwide. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Success stories like this were exactly what events like these were designed to celebrate, the kind of rags to riches narrative that reinforced everyone's belief in the American dream. Please join me in welcoming Rebecca Santos, CEO of Quantum Solutions. The name hit me like lightning. I looked up from my cleaning cart to see Rebecca walking toward the podium, her borrowed dress transformed into a uniform of quiet confidence, her simple purse now seeming like a calculated choice rather than a financial necessity. The room erupted in applause, but I barely heard it. My daughter, my Rebecca, was the keynote speaker at one of the most prestigious business events in the city. The girl who had helped me clean offices to earn extra money, who had studied by lamplight while I worked night shifts, who had never complained about our circumstances, was now being celebrated as one of the most successful young entrepreneurs in the region. I watched in stunned silence as she took the podium, her composure absolute, her presence commanding. She looked out over the crowd with the same analytical gaze she had brought to everything since childhood. And when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had earned every word. "Thank you for that generous introduction," she began, her smile genuine but controlled. "I'm honored to be here tonight to share the story of Quantum Solutions with such an accomplished audience." She spoke for the next 30 minutes about innovation, about identifying market gaps, about the importance of diverse perspectives in technology development. Her presentation was polished, professional, and peppered with insights that clearly impressed even the most cynical listeners. But it was what she said toward the end that truly took my breath away. "Success," she said, her voice growing stronger, "is not about where you come from or what advantages you're born with. It's about recognizing opportunity, working relentlessly toward your goals, and never accepting limitations that others try to place on you. She paused, her eyes finding mine across the crowded room. I learned these lessons from the strongest person I know, someone who worked multiple jobs to ensure I could pursue my education, who sacrificed her own dreams to make mine possible, who taught me that dignity comes not from your title or your bank account, but from the integrity with which you approach every task. The room was completely silent now, every person focused on her words. My mother is here tonight, Rebecca continued, and while she may not have a corner office or a business degree, she raised a daughter who does. She taught me that hard work is its own reward, that education is the greatest gift you can give yourself, and that success means using your advantages to lift others up, not to put them down. She looked directly at Blackwood, who had gone pale, his earlier confidence evaporated. Someone said to me earlier this evening that maids don't raise winners. I respectfully disagree. Maids raise daughters who understand the value of work, who appreciate every opportunity, who never take success for granted. The applause that followed was thunderous, but I barely heard it. I was too busy trying to process what had just happened, trying to reconcile the daughter I thought I knew with the accomplished woman standing at the podium. As Rebecca concluded her remarks and left the stage, I found myself surrounded by people who had ignored me completely just an hour earlier. Suddenly, I was not just the cleaning lady, but the mother of the keynote speaker, the woman who had raised a Forbes cover story, the living embodiment of the American dream. The attention was overwhelming and uncomfortable, but I endured it because I could see how proud Rebecca was, how much this moment meant to her. She had not just succeeded in business, she had vindicated every sacrifice, every hardship, every moment of doubt we had endured together. Later, as the crowd began to thin and I resumed my cleaning duties, Blackwood approached me. His earlier arrogance had been replaced by something that might have been embarrassment, though it was hard to tell with someone so accustomed to being right. "Mrs. Santos," he said, his voice considerably more respectful than it had been earlier, "I owe you an apology." I looked up from my cart, studying his face. "Do you?" I spoke without thinking, made assumptions that were both incorrect and inappropriate. "Your daughter is clearly exceptional, and that speaks well of her upbringing." I continued working, considering his words. "Mr. Blackwood, I've been cleaning offices for 15 years. I've heard every kind of comment, every assumption, every judgment. What you said tonight wasn't unusual. It was just louder than most." He seemed taken aback by my directness. "I hope you'll accept my apology nonetheless." "I will," I said simply, "but not because you need me to. Because my daughter taught me that forgiveness is not about the other person's comfort. It's about your own peace of mind." He nodded, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation, and moved away. I watched him go, feeling neither anger nor satisfaction, just a quiet sense of completion. As I finished my work and prepared to leave, Rebecca appeared at my side. She had changed back into casual clothes, but she still carried herself with the same confidence she had shown at the podium. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, the question that had been burning in my mind since I heard her name announced. She smiled, the same gentle expression she had worn as a child when she had accomplished something she was proud of. "Because I wanted tonight to be about you as much as it was about me. I wanted those people to see what I see when I look at you, which is the smartest, strongest, most determined woman I know. Someone who never let circumstances define her limits, who found ways to provide opportunities she never had herself, who raised a daughter to believe she could accomplish anything." We rode the elevator down together in comfortable silence, the weight of the evening settling around us like a warm blanket. As we walked through the lobby toward the parking garage, I thought about the journey that had brought us to this moment. 15 years of cleaning offices, of working nights and weekends, of sacrificing every comfort and convenience so that Rebecca could have chances I never had. 15 years of being invisible, of being dismissed, of being told in 1,000 subtle ways that my dreams were too small and my daughters were too big. But tonight, in front of Chicago's most successful business leaders, Rebecca had shown them all what I had always known. That success is not about where you start, but about where you're willing to go. That dreams deferred are not necessarily dreams denied. That sometimes the most powerful victories are the ones that happen quietly, in the shadows, in the spaces between what others see and what actually is. As we reached my car, Rebecca turned to me with a proposition that would change everything. "I have an offer for you," she said, her voice carrying the same businesslike tone she had used during her presentation. "What kind of offer?" "I need a chief operating officer at Quantum Solutions. Someone who understands the value of hard work, who can manage complex operations, who has experience in making sure every detail is handled correctly." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Rebecca, I clean offices. I don't know anything about running a technology company. You know about logistics, about coordinating multiple tasks, about working with limited resources to achieve maximum results. You know about persistence, about problem solving, about maintaining high standards under pressure." She paused, studying my face. "Most importantly, you know about leading by example, about earning respect through actions rather than demanding it through authority." The idea was absurd, impossible, everything that Richard Blackwood had said about knowing one's place in the world. But as I looked at my daughter, at the confidence in her eyes, at the certainty in her voice, I realized she was completely serious. "I don't have a business degree," I said weakly. "Neither did Steve Jobs or Bill Gates when they started their companies. You have something more valuable than formal education. Mom, you have wisdom, integrity, and the ability to see solutions that others miss." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder I hadn't noticed before. "This is a formal job offer, including salary, benefits, and equity stake in the company. I've been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment to present it." I opened the folder with trembling hands. The salary figure was more than I had ever imagined earning, more than I had made in the last 5 years combined. But it was the title that truly took my breath away. Chief Operating Officer, Quantum Solutions. "This is crazy," I whispered. "No," Rebecca said firmly. "This is justice. This is recognition for everything you've already accomplished, everything you've already proven you can do. I'm not offering you charity, Mom. I'm offering you the opportunity to apply your skills in a new environment, to learn new systems, to contribute to something bigger than either of us could build alone." Standing in that parking garage, surrounded by the luxury cars of Chicago's business elite, I felt the weight of possibilities settling on my shoulders. For 15 years, I had been defined by my limitations, by what I couldn't do, by what others thought I couldn't become. But Rebecca was offering me something different. Not just a job, but a chance to redefine myself, to discover what I was truly capable of when given the right opportunity and support. "When would I start?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. "Tomorrow, if you want. We have a major presentation next week to a group of potential investors. I could use your help preparing, your eye for detail, your ability to anticipate problems before they happen." I thought about the offices I would not clean tomorrow, the invisible work that would need to be done by someone else. Then I thought about the visible work I could do instead, the contributions I could make, the example I could set. "Okay," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Let's do it." Rebecca's smile was radiant, the same expression she had worn as a child when she solved a particularly challenging math problem. "There's one condition," she said. "What's that?" "You have to promise me that you'll never again let anyone tell you that you don't belong somewhere. You've earned your place at every table, Mom. It's time you claimed it." As we drove home through the Chicago streets, I thought about the evening's events, about the journey that had brought us to this moment. In the space of a few hours, I had gone from being dismissed as irrelevant to being offered a position of genuine authority and responsibility. But the real transformation wasn't in my circumstances, it was in my understanding of what had always been true. I had never been just a cleaning lady. I had been a strategist, managing complex schedules and competing priorities. I had been a problem solver, finding efficient solutions to logistical challenges. I had been a leader, teaching my daughter through example what it meant to work with dignity and purpose. The skills I had developed in 15 years of service work were not limitations to overcome, they were assets to leverage. The perspective I had gained from being invisible was not a weakness to hide, but a strength to embrace. 6 months later, I stood in the conference room of Quantum Solutions, leading a presentation to a group of potential investors. My hands, once rough from cleaning supplies, now moved confidently across tablet screens and presentation remote controls. My voice, once kept deliberately quiet, now carried the authority of someone who had earned her place through demonstrated competence. The investors were impressed not just with our technology, but with our operational efficiency, our attention to detail, our ability to scale rapidly without compromising quality. They signed agreements that would fund our expansion into 3 new markets, partnerships that would triple our revenue within the next year. As the meeting concluded and the investors filed out, I caught a glimpse of myself in the conference room's glass wall. The woman reflected there wore a tailored suit, carried herself with confidence, commanded respect through expertise rather than demanding it through authority. But she was still the same person who had pushed a cleaning cart through the halls of corporate America, who had sacrificed her own dreams to ensure her daughter could pursue hers, who had learned that true success is not about where you start, but about where you're willing to go. The evening Richard Blackwood had dismissed me as incapable of raising a winner. He had been wrong about more than just Rebecca. He had been wrong about me, about the potential that exists in every person who refuses to accept limitations imposed by others, about the power of persistence combined with opportunity. Maids don't just raise winners, I had learned. Sometimes, when given the chance, they become legends themselves. The transformation wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a fairy tale ending to a difficult story. It was the result of recognizing that skills are transferable, that intelligence exists in many forms. That success is not about fitting into someone else's definition of worthiness. It was about a daughter who saw her mother's true potential and created the opportunity for her to realize it. It was about a mother who was willing to step outside her comfort zone and embrace possibilities she had never imagined. It was about proving that with the right support, the right opportunity, and the right perspective, anyone can redefine their story, reclaim their power, and create a legacy that extends far beyond their original circumstances. As I packed up my presentation materials and prepared to leave the office, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From invisible service worker to recognized business leader, from someone who cleaned up after other people's success to someone who creates opportunities for others to succeed. The road had been long, the challenges significant, the doubts constant. But the destination had been worth every step, every sacrifice, every moment of uncertainty. And the best part was knowing that this was not an ending, but a beginning. A beginning of new possibilities, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that potential exists everywhere, waiting to be recognized, nurtured, and unleashed. The lesson I had learned, the lesson I hoped to teach others, was simple but profound. Never let anyone else define your limitations. Never accept that your circumstances determine your possibilities. Never believe that your current situation is your permanent reality. Because sometimes, the most powerful transformations happen not when we change who we are, but when we finally have the opportunity to show who we've always been. Standing in that conference room, surrounded by the evidence of what we had built together, I realized that Richard Blackwood had been wrong about everything. Maids do raise winners. And sometimes, when the time is right, when the opportunity presents itself, when the support is there, maids become winners themselves. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. 1 year later, I found myself standing in the same marble lobby where my journey had truly begun. But this time I wasn't pushing a cleaning cart. I was carrying a leather briefcase, wearing a tailored navy suit, and preparing to address the Chicago Business Leaders Association about the importance of recognizing untapped potential in unexpected places. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same building where I had been dismissed as irrelevant now welcomed me as a featured speaker, a successful executive whose story had become something of a legend in the local business community. But the real transformation wasn't in my wardrobe or my title. It was in the way I saw myself, the way I carried the knowledge that potential exists everywhere, waiting to be recognized, nurtured, and unleashed. As I walked through the lobby, I noticed her immediately. A young woman, maybe 25, wheeling a cleaning cart toward the service elevator. Her movements were efficient, purposeful, but there was something in her eyes that reminded me of myself at that age, a spark of intelligence that seemed too bright for her surroundings. I watched her work for a moment, noting how she organized her supplies with mathematical precision, how she moved through the space with an understanding of traffic patterns and efficiency that spoke to a mind that saw systems where others saw only surfaces. On impulse, I approached her. "Excuse me," I said, my voice gentle but confident. "I'm Maria Santos, Q of Quantum Solutions. I was wondering if I could ask you about your work here." She looked up, startled. Her name tag read Angela Martinez, and her expression was a mixture of confusion and wariness. "Is there a problem with my work, ma'am?" "Not at all," I assured her. "Quite the opposite. I've been watching how you organize your tasks, and I'm impressed by your systematic approach. Do you have a background in logistics or operations management?" Angela's eyes widened slightly. "I studied industrial engineering at the community college," she said carefully, "but I couldn't afford to finish the program. I've been working here for 2 years, trying to save money to go back to school." The conversation felt like déjà vu, like looking into a mirror that reflected my own past. Here was another brilliant mind, another untapped potential, another person whose circumstances had obscured their true capabilities. "Would you be interested in hearing about some opportunities at my company?" I asked. "We're always looking for people who understand systems, who can see efficiency where others see complexity." Angela's cart stopped moving. "I don't understand." "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to show what you're really capable of, just like someone once offered me." Over the following weeks, Angela joined Quantum Solutions as an operations analyst. Her insights into workflow optimization and resource allocation were immediately valuable, her engineering background providing perspectives that our team hadn't considered. But more importantly, she became the first person I hired through what we began calling the Hidden Potential Initiative, a program designed to identify and develop talent in unconventional places. The program grew organically as word spread throughout the company. We began partnerships with community colleges, job training programs, and social service organizations. We created pathways for people whose intelligence and capabilities had been overlooked by traditional hiring processes. Within 6 months, we had hired 12 people through the initiative: a former construction worker who had taught himself computer programming, a single mother who had been managing complex schedules and budgets for a daycare center, a military veteran whose logistics experience had been undervalued in the civilian job market. Each new hire brought fresh perspectives, innovative solutions, and a work ethic forged through overcoming significant obstacles. They understood the value of opportunity because they had lived without it. They appreciated recognition because they had been invisible. But the program's impact extended beyond our company. Other businesses began to take notice, implementing similar initiatives. recognizing that talent exists in every corner of society if you know how to look for it. I began receiving invitations to speak at conferences, to share our story, to advocate for a different approach to hiring and talent development. The message was always the same: potential is everywhere, but opportunity is not. Creating bridges between the two is not just good business, it's social responsibility. The speaking engagements brought me into contact with other executives who had similar stories, people who had been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed before finding their true calling. We formed an informal network, sharing resources and strategies, supporting each other's efforts to create more inclusive definitions of success. One of the most meaningful connections was with Dr. James Chun, a former restaurant dishwasher who had worked his way through medical school and now ran a successful practice while advocating for healthcare access in underserved communities. His story paralleled mine in many ways: the long hours, the sacrifices, the moment when someone finally saw his potential and created an opportunity for him to realize it. Together, we developed a mentorship program that paired successful professionals with individuals who showed promise but lacked traditional credentials or connections. The program operated on the principle that everyone deserves to have someone believe in their potential, even when they struggle to believe in it themselves. As Quantum Solutions continued to grow, Rebecca and I found ourselves working as true partners. She remained the visionary, the technical genius who saw possibilities that others missed. I became the implementer, the one who took her ideas and transformed them into operational reality. Our complementary skills created a synergy that surprised even us. Her innovation combined with my operational expertise resulted in solutions that were both groundbreaking and practical, revolutionary and sustainable. The company's success attracted attention from major technology firms, venture capital funds, and industry publications. We were featured in case studies about effective leadership, innovative hiring practices, and the importance of diverse perspectives in technology development. But the achievement that meant the most to me was smaller, more personal. It happened during a company meeting when Angela Martinez, now our Director of Operations, presented a new efficiency protocol that would save the company hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. As she explained her system to the room full of executives and engineers, I saw the same confidence in her voice that I had once seen in Rebecca's. The same certainty that comes from knowing your worth, from having your intelligence recognized and valued. After the meeting, she approached me privately. "Maria," she said, using the informal address I had encouraged from the beginning, "I wanted to thank you for seeing something in me that I didn't even see in myself." "I saw what was always there," I replied. "I just helped create the conditions for it to flourish." She smiled, the same expression of possibility that I had learned to recognize in people who were discovering their true potential. "I've been thinking about starting a nonprofit," she said. "Something that helps people transition from service work to professional careers. I was wondering if you might be interested in advising the organization." The request filled me with pride and anticipation. The cycle was continuing, expanding, creating ripples of opportunity that would extend far beyond anything I could have imagined. "I'd be honored," I said, meaning every word. As the months passed, I found myself taking on an increasingly public role as an advocate for workplace equality and opportunity creation. The story of my transformation from cleaning lady to C-suite executive had become a symbol of what was possible when barriers were removed and potential was recognized. But with visibility came responsibility. I began receiving letters from people across the country who had heard my story and wanted to share their own experiences of being overlooked, undervalued, or dismissed. Each letter was a reminder that my journey was not unique, that there were countless others waiting for their moment of recognition. The weight of representation was sometimes overwhelming. I understood that my success was not just personal achievement, but also a symbol of possibility for others who saw themselves in my story. Every decision I made, every speech I gave, every interview I conducted carried the hopes and dreams of people who had been told they weren't enough. During one particularly challenging period, when the pressure of expectations threatened to overwhelm me, Rebecca sat me down for a conversation that reminded me why we were doing this work. "Mom," she said, her voice carrying the same gentle authority she had always possessed, "remember that you're not responsible for representing everyone. You're responsible for being yourself, for sharing your truth, for creating opportunities where you can. But what if I fail?" I asked, voicing the fear that had been haunting me. What if I make a mistake that reflects poorly on everyone who looks like me, who comes from where I come from? "Then you'll handle it with the same grace and dignity you've shown throughout this entire journey," she replied. "You'll learn from it, grow from it, and use it to become even better at what you do." Her words reminded me of something I had always known but sometimes forgot. Perfection was not the goal. Growth was. Learning was. Creating opportunities for others was. Armed with this reminder, I continued to push forward, to advocate, to create, to inspire. The Hidden Potential Initiative expanded to include partnerships with universities, government agencies, and international organizations. We developed curricula, training programs, and assessment tools that helped identify and develop talent regardless of traditional markers of success. The work was challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exhausting. But it was also deeply fulfilling in ways I had never experienced before. Every person we helped transition from underemployment to meaningful work, every barrier we dismantled, every assumption we challenged, felt like a victory not just for them, but for everyone who had ever been told they weren't good enough. 2 years after that first evening in the Millennium Tower, I found myself back in the same building, but this time as the guest of honor at the annual Excellence in Leadership Awards. The same room where Richard Blackwood had dismissed me as incapable of raising a winner was now celebrating my contributions to business innovation and social impact. As I accepted the award, I looked out at the audience, a mix of executives, entrepreneurs, and community leaders, and saw faces that reflected the diversity of talent and potential that existed in our city. Some were people I had helped hire, others were individuals who had been inspired by our story to create their own opportunities, and still others were traditional leaders who had been moved to examine their own hiring practices and assumptions. In my acceptance speech, I spoke about the importance of looking beyond traditional credentials to find true potential, about the responsibility we all have to create opportunities for others, about the power of believing in someone when they struggle to believe in themselves. "Success," I said, echoing words I had spoken many times before, "is not about where you start or what advantages you're born with. It's about recognizing that intelligence, creativity, and determination exist in every corner of our society, waiting to be discovered and developed." I paused, letting my eyes sweep across the audience, making contact with individuals who represented the full spectrum of human potential. When we expand our definition of talent, when we create pathways for people who have been overlooked, when we invest in potential rather than just pedigree, we don't just transform individual lives. We transform our entire community. The standing ovation that followed was gratifying, but the real reward came afterward, during the reception, when person after person approached me to share their own stories of transformation, of being seen, of finding their true calling through unexpected pathways. One conversation in particular stayed with me. A young man named David, who had been working in a warehouse while studying accounting at night, told me how our company's partnership with his community college had led to an internship that changed his life. "I always thought I was just good with numbers," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "But when I started working with your team, I realized I was actually good at seeing patterns, at understanding how different systems connect to each other. Now I'm working on predictive analytics that help companies optimize their supply chains. His story was a perfect example of what happened when potential met opportunity, when someone's natural abilities were recognized and developed rather than dismissed or ignored. As the evening wound down, I found myself alone on the building's observation deck, looking out over the Chicago skyline. The city spread before me like a map of possibilities, each light representing a life, a dream, a potential waiting to be realized. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, from invisible service worker to recognized business leader, from someone who cleaned up after other people's success to someone who created opportunities for others to succeed. But more than that, I thought about the ripple effects of that transformation. Angela Martinez was now mentoring other women transitioning from service work to professional careers. David was developing technology that would help countless businesses operate more efficiently. The Hidden Potential Initiative had inspired similar programs in dozens of companies across the country. Each person we had helped, each barrier we had dismantled, each assumption we had challenged had created new possibilities for others. The impact was exponential, growing far beyond anything I could have imagined when I first pushed that cleaning cart through these halls. As I prepared to leave the building, I stopped by the service elevator where I had first met Angela. There was a new cleaning person there now, a middle-aged man who worked with the same quiet efficiency I remembered from my own days in this building. I introduced myself and struck up a conversation. His name was Robert, and he had been laid off from a manufacturing job 2 years earlier. He was working nights to support his family while looking for better opportunities. "What did you do in manufacturing?" I asked. "Quality control," he replied. I was good at spotting problems before they became big issues, at seeing patterns that others missed. The conversation felt familiar, like an echo of countless others I had had over the years. Here was another person whose skills and intelligence were being underutilized, another potential waiting to be recognized and developed. "Would you be interested in hearing about some opportunities at my company?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Robert's face lit up with the same mixture of hope and disbelief I had learned to recognize in people who had been overlooked for too long. "Are you serious?" "I'm always serious about potential," I replied, handing him my business card. "Call me tomorrow. Let's talk about what you're really capable of." As I walked to my car, I reflected on how the cycle continued, how each person we helped became a catalyst for helping others, how recognition and opportunity created ever-widening circles of impact. The transformation that had begun with a single moment of humiliation had become a movement of empowerment. The dismissal that was meant to diminish had instead illuminated the potential that exists in every person, waiting to be seen, valued, and developed. Standing in the parking garage where Rebecca had first offered me the chance to redefine my life, I realized that the greatest success was not in what I had achieved, but in what I had made possible for others. The true measure of my transformation was not in my own advancement, but in the advancement of everyone whose potential I had helped recognize and realize. The night air was crisp with autumn promise, and as I drove home through the city streets, I thought about tomorrow's challenges and opportunities. There would be more Roberts to meet, more Angelas to mentor, more barriers to break down, more assumptions to challenge. The work was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning to reach its full potential. Because I had learned that the most powerful transformations happen not when we change who we are, but when we create conditions for others to discover who they've always been capable of becoming. And in a world full of hidden potential, that work would never be finished. It would only continue to grow, to spread, to create new possibilities for generations to come. The story that had begun with a cleaning cart and a dismissive comment had become something far larger than personal vindication. It had become a testament to the power of recognition, the importance of opportunity, and the endless potential that exists when we choose to see beyond the surface to discover the extraordinary capabilities that lie within ordinary people. As I pulled into my driveway, I smiled at the thought of tomorrow's possibilities, knowing that somewhere in the city, another person was waiting to be seen, to be valued, to be given the chance to show what they were truly capable of achieving. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning to reach its full potential.